Hey, here's a quick bit of show and tell on some of the stuff that I'm doing in web2print, a little bit about how my code works, and a challenge that I'm working on and how I'm actually starting to address that problem. So if you want to design a piece of apparel online or something like that, you run into a problem. If I'm gonna customize this hoodie right here, this is not a lot of pixels to play with, right? If I add a circle, maybe that's, I don't know, 50 pixels across. Let's take a look at how big this area is. So we're looking at 314 by 209 pixels. But if I want to print this thing in real life, it's like pretty big. Like it's like this big, and that many pixels ain't gonna cut it, fam. So how are we gonna actually like allow people to edit stuff in this thing at a reasonable size? Because we can't blow it up on the screen as big as it is in real life, but we also can't allow the screen to constrain us to very small pixel values unless we're using only vector graphics. But if somebody uploads a raster image, like a really nice big PNG that's maybe 300 DPI and it's got like, 5 inches by 6 inches, they should be able to put that on the upper left chest of their shirt, right? And doing that in a designer like this is actually pretty tough. But here's what I'm doing. When somebody uploads an image, I'm going to upload a test image. Here's the test image I'm using for the front. I am always showing a smaller version of the image, but I'm showing it at the same scale as the actual real life item, right? So this test image right now, when I zoom out to here, let's see how big it's rendering at. It's rendering at 318 by 212, but I have the data for that real world image, and it just happens to be that this real world image is the exact, or this image has the number of pixels, the file that I uploaded has the number of pixels as the real world print area on this hoodie does. So let's go ahead and let me get out of this selector. Let's go ahead and export that. So it's not doing anything right now, but what it's gonna do is it's going to export that at its real world size because I'm keeping track of that data there. So let's copy this string right here and let's see what we got. I'm gonna head over to base64 guru, paste that in, boom. That's a lot bigger than this, right? 300 pixels on edge. And then what's this telling us? It's telling us that we've got, where does it say the size? Let me reload. It should tell us the size. It's like, it's very big. Yeah, it's 4200 by 2800 pixels basically. So if I open this in a new tab, it's going to take up my whole screen and I can zoom in and you see it's not blurry, it's real. And this was a raster image. These are not vector images, so you would expect it to be kind of blurry if I blew it up from 300 pixels on edge to 2700 pixels on edge, which I just did right here. But I'm keeping track of all the stuff that customers upload in the background so that the original file size in pixels is actually preserved, right? So here's a little bit about how I tackled that problem. When I was first doing this, there were some issues I was facing. I would upload something onto the design canvas, and maybe the design canvas was set at 10% of the real world print area, right? So for definitions, this right here is the design canvas, and the real world print area is the number in pixels on each side of the design canvas if it was a real hoodie. So if this hoodie was real life sized, how many pixels would be on each edge? We're talking 4200 by 2799. 2,799 pixels for this particular print area. So that's a pretty big print area. And I was saying in this document, uh, if the real world print area is this big and the design canvas just happens to be rendering at 10% of that, why on earth am I not able to get the images on the canvas to be the right size? So I was like, okay, we're gonna cut out as many variables as possible. The first task that I have for myself is just to export an image at the real world size. And so I get some info from my database and I export a blank image. Okay, then I move down to this situation. Let's say it's set at 5% and I upload an image that covers the entire canvas. It should be able to show that whole image without cropping it in the design canvas, and it should be able to export that entire image without making it just a tiny little export when you export the real thing. So I made a list of requirements and I did some checking, and uh-oh, we got an error. I can totally display the canvas image, without cropping it, but then when it comes to export, it looked a little something like this. Hmm. Let me see if I can show you. It would look something like this. You got a tiny little square in the top left. That is what we call in the biz a classic no bueno situation. So what I did was I took a little look at the data that was happening in the actual image, and it's like, okay, we've got the positioning, we've got the width, and we've got the height, and here's the scale. The scale is 5% because remember, the canvas is displaying at 5% the dimensions of the actual real life print area. And then when I was checking the image settings on the export, it's all the same stuff. Okay, cool. So I changed some stuff around and I made a parser that says, all right, when I'm exporting, I'm going to set the zoom of every image to basically be 100%. And that switched this error for another error. Okay, what's going on here? Well, the problem was that if I display an image at 100% on the design canvas, let's say I upload a really big image right here, like I just did, it's going to look something like this. It's going to be really expanded. And that's another classic no bueno situation because you want the customer to see a smaller version of what the real life product will look like. You don't want them to be rendering the image at its actual size because their laptop or phone screen is not obviously the size of the hoodie. So I traded one problem for another, but I noticed again, these two things are equal, the image data on the canvas and the image data when I export it. So the actual thing that I needed to have happen was I needed those pieces of data to be disequal. They needed to be not the same as each other. So I've got the original scale right here, and then when I export, I need to set the scale to 100% for this particular situation. Now there are edge cases where maybe the customer resizes the image that they input, and I have to still handle those, but I'm constraining the situation to manage the amount of variability that I have to deal with and go through this in a slow and methodical way because I'm not able to naturally grasp the entire complex situation like some programmers are able to do that. I have to go through it brick by frickin' brick. So what that does is I parse the canvas on the way out instead of on the way in, and I let the customers I resize it to fit the canvas in here when they first upload it so that it's not like super freaking big. And then on the way out, when they click export, I set it to be the real world dimensions again with a parser. So that's where you get a nice big image like this on the export, but the customer is able to play with a nice small image like this in the designer. And the result of that was that, boom, I got the real world size on export. I was able to fill the canvas with the 100% image, and then I made sure that it wasn't being cropped, and I tried it for all my different products. I made a bunch of these guys for the different, where'd it go? For the different product examples I've got, and I just threw some squares on them, and like this guy is 4200 by 4800, this guy's 4200 by 2799, and I just made those in a free online Photoshop called Photopea to save myself some time. And then I tried it at various zoom levels to make sure that everything was good. So it's great. We have built one brick of this application, and there are 3 more bricks to build. And a little side note, I don't have a problem showing my thought process and some of my code online because I think like a lot of people would be like, dude, why are you not keeping this stuff top secret? And the answer is this little tip of the iceberg that I shared just here is absolutely not even close to getting you even part of the way to where you need to be to make an app like this. Like I have been working on this stuff for almost 2 years now. There's a lot more that goes into it than this, so I have no problem sharing what I'm working on, no problem showing some tips and tricks because I know that in order to replicate this, you're gonna have to put in a shit ton of work that this this one video alone will not provide. So yeah, this is just a little bit about my thought process and why I'm willing to share stuff like this online about my app, and yeah, just some of my workflow. Hopefully some people out there find it interesting.